there wasn't anything online at the time. It was like, there was, but it wasn't like, Michael Pollan's book and Tim Ferriss. And it was very, oh, you're going to do more drugs to cure your addiction. Like, what are you talking? It was very looked on as super weird and like with a negative connotation. Up where I thought that I was not worthy of love and had this idea that I really needed to achieve, be successful. So very A-type personality, business school, wanted to have a great career and make money as a way to earn success in the eyes of my parents and in friends. And so thought that if I had things and achievements, people would love me, I'd be worthy of love. And so pre-psychedelics, I had no idea this was my conditioning. I just was operating in that mindset. And what that meant was trying to get an amazing job, working super hard at something I didn't care about just to make money, buying a ton of material stuff, having a business that ended up failing because it was just a pursuit of like, how do I get rich fast? And then I really struggled with stimulation and addiction tendencies. So for me, it was drugs and alcohol. And so I would work super hard. And then on Friday to deal with the stress, I would, start with 3 or 4 drinks, and that would lead to a ton of cocaine use. And then that would happen every weekend for a period of probably 10 years. And so those were autopilot responses because I had no idea of my emotional conditioning, how to process what healthy habits might look like, or really even cared. It was very much like, do girls like me? Do friends like me? Do I have money? Am I doing good? Am I making my parents proud? Am I worthy? Go to work, do drugs, drink, rinse and repeat. And that led to my business failing. It led to me being broke at 30, moving back into my parents' basement, and just really feeling like a failure and being almost suicidal. So common personality traits that are shared are that type A need to succeed beyond anything else. And that's sort of completely unconscious of all these patterns and the reasoning behind that. And then like a lack of true self-love. Was aware of psychedelics for recreational use in high school, psilocybin, just like old mushrooms, and had experience. When I was dealing with addiction in this period of darkness, I was looking for resources. And I started with a Vipassana retreat, a 10-day meditation retreat, as a way to learn the skill of meditation, to use it to help with addiction. And at that retreat, after the retreat, one of the guests said, hey, I'm going to use LSD in a few weeks. We're going to do it in an interesting way. And so tried LSD. And then at the kind of this LSD ceremony, there was someone talking about ayahuasca. And so I then, I would say the first LSD experience was very recreational. It was 4 people in the forest in Israel watching the sunset. So it was in nature. It wasn't in a party environment, but there wasn't like an intention set. I just felt like, wow, this is really interesting. Getting comfortable with the LSD use, I'd learned about ayahuasca, and somebody in the meditation community had said, hey, this is very similar to the state of a 10-day meditation retreat. Perhaps you'd like it. I'm very curious and like outgoing. And so I thought, yeah, okay, I'll try anything. And then tried ayahuasca for the first time. That then led to some research on ayahuasca and a deep, 4-journey retreat with an actual intention. So I'd say learned about it in meditation communities. There wasn't anything online at the time. It was like, there was, but it wasn't like, Michael Pollan's book and Tim Ferriss. And it was very, oh, you're going to do more drugs to cure your addiction. Like, what are you talking? It was very looked on as super weird and like with a negative connotation. But in kind of a niche community, and then to use in combination with nature, and then post combination with nature, it was to use more with intention. So there was an arc to learning between my first experience and like the experience that had the most impact. There was definitely an arc. This was my 4th retreat over a period of 8 years using specifically ayahuasca. And I'd found in the past that it can totally change both my willpower and behavioral habits if used correctly. And so the first time I used ayahuasca, it was to transition from addiction. And I've actually never had a drink or any stimulant since in 7.5-ish years. Going into this one, I was using work in a very similar manner. There's 2 things that I was really interested in. One was marking a transition, which I think psychedelics do really well. So death of a loved one, a relationship change, job change, and I was moving into fatherhood. And I'd heard from a friend who the Nikean Foundation knows well, Steve Rio, and he had just said, look, the most important thing you can do as a new dad is the quality of your nervous system for this new life. And I was in a pattern of, wake up, 2 coffees, no food, work for 14 hours, very much the same as I was using drugs and alcohol, and now work is a healthier habit that can earn you success. But it's similar patterning that was driving me to work so hard to be successful. And I just kind of sat with it and thought like, wow, this is really not a good environment for a baby. You know, my nervous system is always in fight or flight. It's not aligned. My heart is somewhat closed because I'm always executing and doing and not being. And that's not a good environment for a new life. And so in talking with my wife, we thought, one, it would be really nice to change some of these habits, and then to be a bit healthier and more present for the baby. And then two, it'd be really nice just to mark the transitionary period. And we did something similar with our wedding, where we only invited like 30 close friends. We had ceremony around it, intention, eye gazing, love letters, all these different things that like marked it as special. And so it's going out of the way to really create, you know, like, hey, being a father is important, and I'm going to actually take a week off, travel with friends, put in work, do some therapy, and say like, this is an important thing. And it just felt meaningful. So those are the two things, is to mark a powerful transition, and then two, to change behavioral habits. The experience itself was, of the 4 retreats I've been to, like significantly more epic. There was a few things that led to that result. But the first was just, when I'm using psychedelics, there's a huge difference between recreational use and therapeutic use, with the idea of changing behavior. And so the container is the most important. And so I had a therapist I work with named Jesse Hansen, who got me introduced to something called parts work, and a very unique spin on it. And before even, you know, the retreat, it was, hey, what does being a father mean? And who are the parts of you? How do they feel about it? And so we connected with this framework that's the eagle eyes, the shepherd, and the crazy kids. And so the eagle eyes is the part of you that can see yourself in the past, in the future, the thinker, the inner critic, the part that can connect to something higher during psychedelic experiences. The shepherd is the you in the present who makes decisions. So that's the empty vessel now that says like, I'll do this, I'll do that, actually deciding. And the crazy kids are all the parts of you. So the part that's angry, perhaps, the part that has self-doubt, the part that wants to be loved by others. And so his framework is to gather all of these parts as the shepherd around a fire in a safe space, and to talk to them and ask them, you know, why are you doing this? How are you acting? How do the other parts feel? And see if you can feel into those parts and engage. And so this is one of the more effective forms of psychotherapy based on internal family systems. So that was sort of what set the stage, was really spending some time going into that space and asking the different parts of me what it felt like to become a father. The part that's, you know, working too much and needs to achieve, why was it so strong at that moment? Going into Holos, the experience itself, like just incredible land and nature. And so in addition to the prep, for me, psychedelic experiences are much more likely to be integrated if there's time off. So, you know, a serious diet, 12, 14 days in advance. Again, just signaling to the mind this is important. Journaling practice, writing about your feelings, and then having no phone and connection to nature. And so for me, I'm in Toronto, you know, to set the scene, I was just drinking 2 coffees, not even eating till 5 p.m., ordering Uber Eats, like pizzas and like massive burgers at night because I was so stressed and watching TV and falling asleep, waking up like terrible digestion, feeling like shit every day, feeling overwhelmed no matter what. And then on the weekend crashing and like sleeping all day. And so my goals out of the experience were to improve my diet, to stop drinking coffee, to start meditating again, and to really like set the base for new solid habits. And so going into this ayahuasca, it was like, wow, I'm actually in nature, and the space, the land is so powerful there. Like one night we slept in a cave, which was meant to visualize like a womb for a rebirth, and the cave had 4 massive waterfalls flowing outside of it. So it felt like you were in legit like Lord of the Rings set, you know. And then the other thing that was very different for me was in other retreats I've done in the Shipibo lineage, very dark, intense, strong medicine, alone at night, and you're really like going through traumas. So I won't go into those experiences, but this experience was, you know, my sister, my best friends in the whole world that were all coming to celebrate a new life. So it felt way more heart-centered and heart-focused than releasing traumas with deep experiences in the past. And so in this experience, like the programming was immaculate. Sound bath to start, breath work daily, massage and body work, very tight container with everyone having this level of therapy, setting an intention. and then this beautiful natural environment, which has such an impact on the vibe, like versus going to do, 2 ceremonies on a weekend in Toronto. It's completely remote and allows for deeper work and integration. It really, really does make a difference, at least to me. And so these ceremonies, a couple highlights. One was the ability to ask for help. And so it was 3 ceremonies over the period of a week, very strong Peruvian medicine. Some highlights, and just in the interest of time, but one was, hearing my friends really going through it on the second deep dive ceremony, and we're kind of in a row, and there was 4 people. I was beside my sister, and you just hear them struggling, asking for help, screaming. And I was in that same space of, I feel really uncomfortable. I have a lot of fear. I don't know how to let go. I don't know what to do. I should ask for help. And I just didn't have the ability to do that. And it was interesting of, maybe I actually don't feel comfortable, even though I'm vulnerable to share what I'm thinking. I don't have comfortability asking for help and saying I'm not okay. And so then the third day, my intention was fucking ask for help. If you need it, do it. And so super strong medicine. It's kicking in 20 minutes in, the music hasn't even started yet. It's quiet, and it's a daytime ceremony, which was my first, and quite a beautiful experience. But just feeling okay, ask for help, do it. Put your hand up, say you need help. And so again, Steve, who had joined me on this experience, Steve, I need your help, man. And he came over and he sat with me, held my hand. I have another man that's not a family member that close to you is also not super common. And so, face to face, cheek to cheek, and saying hey man, I'm so sorry. I need this from you. I can't do this on my own. I'm so scared. I don't know how to do this. I just feeling this fear and trauma of being young and experiences that I hadn't let go. And I'm not worthy of love, like I had mentioned before. And even don't feel worthy to take up space. And so I feel asking him for help. It's hey man, I'm so sorry. You're here. I can't believe you're doing this. Are you okay? And he's just dude, just shut up and take the love. I'm fucking here for you. And so, I heard that, and it was armor around my heart just broke, and I started crying. And it felt like he was almost my dad saying man, I love you. And I was worthy of unconditional love. And so it's just crying, body full on tremoring, shaking, just releasing years of stored trauma and patterning. And then in that moment, I felt that, oh wow, this is the love I'm going to have for my baby. And I saw his face and just felt this awakening of, wow, what it feels like to have your heart open. And it just made me realize that emotions are so available, but difficult to access because of the hurts. We have armor on. And so it was removing that armor that I built up because I was afraid of being hurt to, hey, this is what love feels like. It just felt so powerful. Through that ceremony while I was struggling, I had 4 friends, family come, and my sister came, gave me a hug. I remembered us as kids skating and holding hands and protecting her. She's younger. I had my brother-in-law, Dan, come and give me a big Viking hug, and I felt super safe. It was so different from traditional ceremonies where you're actually not supposed to touch others in process, and to have all friends supporting each other, holding hands, dancing together. It was really a joyous atmosphere. So that's what stuck with me the most from an in-ceremony experience. Around Holos, there's a local tribe that's been on the land for 1,000 years, and they had a fatherhood ceremony that was passed down from new father to new father, where they would take the ink of a tree, a tree sap, that was invisible ink that would be painted on that over time grows and makes a 1-month tattoo from trees native to the land. And so we've been doing plant medicines around these amazing cedar trees. And so they used one of them to paint this ink. And while they were doing it, explained the tradition and what it means to be a father, from the new father to the new father. And then all my friends, one by one, came, held my hand, did an eye gaze, and explained a time when I was a protector for them or a blessing for our baby and my wife. So that was obviously, after 3 plant medicine ceremonies, super eye-opening to feel wow, I'm really actually held by my community, and my community's here to help me when I'm struggling, which for many people you don't realize that. You think, hey, I'm in this on my own. And so it was a clear indication that wow, we came all the way to Peru to do this with you, or to Costa Rica to do this with you and celebrate. And then the result of that was very tight intentions. And for me, it was, meditation every morning, Whole30 diet, and no caffeine. I actually followed that for 60 days. every day. And as a result, was back to eating healthy, working out again, much more grounded at work. And it made a huge difference for when the baby was born, how I was able to show up, the size of my heart, feeling more present. It totally changed my habits. And now we're about 2.5 months in, and those habits are starting to come back as I get busier and I'm back to work and I want to have coffee. And so it's just an interesting way that for a short period of time, you can turbocharge your willpower when needed. And so that's really what I look at psychedelics. Psychedelic medicines are not a silver bullet. Firstly, the habit changes were stark. So I was struggling for 18 months with like a fast food problem of coffee in the morning, no food in the day, feeling tired, feeling like shit, bad digestion, fast food every night. And I couldn't get off it, even though I've been healthy like for years. I just couldn't not order the cheeseburger or the pasta. I was in pretty good shape and I had gained up to 30% body fat over that 18 months. And so for the last number of months, I haven't ordered Uber Eats once. I've eaten a dessert one time. I've done this Whole30 diet. So I totally changed my relationship with food and healthy eating. I've also got back to my meditation practice, which I'd lost for, 9-10 months. And those two things have made a huge difference in my daily health, my energy levels, my ability to go to the gym. They kind of form the basis for everything else. Even ability to work with energy now. And that's led to me being a better dad, more energy, more calm, not losing my mind. Like the other day, we do these practices in the sauna where we think about our thorn. So what are we struggling with? And I didn't even have one. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm so happy. Everything's going so great. And it's because of those good habits day in, day out, but they had been totally railroaded. So now I'm in a space where I'm operating in a very good place, but I can feel those habits coming back, so we're 2.5 months in. And so today I was busy and I had 2 cups of coffee and I haven't eaten yet. And it's like, oh, wow, how easily can your parts take over? And I love work. It's so exciting, so how do I maintain balance? And so as a recommendation is, yes, behavioral change is super possible. Yes, there's this window after psychedelic work where, you continue to improve, but at the same time, habits you've built from when you were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, you might have had them for 30 years. They don't unwind overnight. And so the way I look at psychedelic medicines is in routine, along with therapy, introspection, meditation, community. But I personally will, once a year at least have one deep dive to sort of implement change. Even now I'm starting to feel a bit of craving for some of these things. So my willpower is still strong, but I could see it in 6 months, being near to where I was. So I know that there's this backstop when I need it to take a break and use the psychedelics to help keep me on the right path. For me, it's what habits can I implement, I can focus on, and that I can stick with, and that by implementing those habits will improve my willpower and build a base. And so this time, what was really important to me was controlling my nervous system. And so the results were healthy eating, meditation in the morning, and no caffeine for a period of time. As I said, that lasted for about 2 months. And so still the meditation and the eating has been extremely healthy. The caffeine now is something I've introduced as I'm going back to work. I really, really enjoyed, I bought books by this author, young Pablo, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he has a book called Inward and another one called Clarity and Connection, and they're just poetry. And so I would read 2 poems every morning, literally 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then I would meditate for 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how much time I'd have, and then I would read 2 poems at the end. And I found that would just open my heart in the morning before looking at my phone and work. It was a chance to feel emotions before email and coffee. And that made a big difference. And that's a habit that I actually still it's making me really look forward to my meditations in the morning. And then the next was the Whole30, having a strict diet plan and doing it in a competition with friends for support. And now 2 months in, I've drastically reduced my desire for dessert or fast food, and so hopefully that sticks. I'll kind of keep watch because it is related to caffeine. But so that's how I've integrated, was with actual habits that I wanted to change. And it wasn't so much with thought patterns this time. It wasn't I want to feel more self-love. It was just I really want to change these behaviors to feel more healthy. And for that, it's worked extremely effectively. accessibility is probably an issue here, but I think the greatest sustainable behavioral change has come from deep dive retreats. And so I was thinking, if you really want to make change, the amount of effort put in is going to lead to the results. And so there's a massive difference between I did plant medicine one time on a work day and then went back to work, and I've done a 2-week dieta and 4 plant medicine experiences in nature with no phone, with some concrete habits or goals that you want to achieve afterwards. And it might achievement is possibly the wrong word. It may just be, hey, I want to feel more self-love, and so I'm going to write a nice thing about myself in my journal every day for 30 days. So I think for me as a tool, if I'm listening and I want the full magic of what these medicines have to offer, it's deep dive, multiple experiences, some therapy and introspection before with a clear goal, connection in nature, time off your phone, and then some habits around what you want to achieve after. And the more detailed you can think about what it is you want to change in your life, the more value or likelihood that you'll get that. And so for me, using psychedelics as a change agent has been most powerful. They're also fantastic for like recreational use or exploring your mind or feeling love. But if there's something, if you're looking on this journey and there's something you want to change, the more seriously you take it, the better the outcome.